Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Gentle Power. We are finally back in our normal studio situation.
Yeah. Well, we can jump right to it.
Let's
Well,
jump right
very
in.
quickly, tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and one of the things I'm most thankful for is how good we have been at having a podcast episode every single week for 8 weeks, 8 months.
8 weeks. Like, that's not that much.
Yeah, 8 months through so much travel and festivals and family health issues and all types of things, like travel around the world. We went to Korea, we went to Hawaii, Albania, maybe a couple times throughout
hmm
this time. There's been so much, and somehow we managed to
We've
stay on
been
top of it.
very consistent.
Yeah, I'm very proud of us.
I think there were 1 or 2 weeks when we almost
Yeah.
decided we're like, oh my gosh, you know what? Let's just
No.
bump it.
Once you,
But
yeah,
and there was this one week we even published on a Saturday,
right.
and we thought and we expected that it wouldn't get as much distribution just because we're publishing on a weekend. But we felt that making sure that we're consistent was much more important than trying to maximize
Yeah,
reach or
exactly.
distribution of each episode, because the consistency
Yeah.
is what's important in the long run.
Right. And also, I have this feeling where if you break the streak, then you'll find excuses several other times.
You lose momentum, you lose
momentum.
inertia and all that. So
Yeah.
for those who have stuck with us, one big happy family.
Happy Thanksgiving.
We hope that people have found this valuable. We do get outreach from even just complete strangers who have told us that they found us just by searching negotiations help, and they listened to a bunch of our episodes, and
It's
it really helped them
amazing.
out.
Well, quick reminder that we're on Spotify, Apple, and
YouTube.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We also have our newsletters on our website, yournegotiations.kit.com.
Yep.
Okay, we don't have much time. So the topic I wanted us to explore today is, well, this might come as a surprise to some people. Mid-career negotiations do better than exec negotiations. All of our clients are either mid-career or execs in tech and tech adjacent industries like banking, biotech, and things like that. We might have more execs nowadays.
We've been having more execs recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, so senior directors, VPs. We've even worked with
C-suite,
C-suite execs.
former CEOs, current CEOs, lots of COOs, founders.
Yeah. And it seems like there is this misconception or this assumption that the later you are in your career, the higher the comp increases are, which kind of makes sense because maybe you are making objectively more than earlier in your career. But we have seen that in quite a few cases, the mid-careers, maybe the individual contributors, the ICs, get much higher comp increases
Yes.
than we see with execs.
Both as a percentage of their compensation and in absolute numbers, which is very surprising. And we'll go into our hypothesis as to why that is. But just want to clarify, the misconception is around the increase during negotiations, not just do you make a lot more, let's say, going from a PM to a VP of product, of course.
Yeah.
But while you're negotiating, what does that increase look like? In our experience, and we've worked with, at this point, probably hundreds of people, we see that when we help people in their mid-career negotiate their job offers, we can get them a much bigger increase, both in terms of percentage and in terms of absolute numbers, as opposed to when we work with execs. And we have a few theories why that is, which is not on us because we are the common denominator.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So one of the more obvious ones is that execs are overconfident. I think maybe we can all agree. If you've gotten to a point where you're leading a company and leading teams, you feel very confident in your judgment and in your skills. And you probably have a very solid education, usually when you get to those levels. However, me loving studies, psychology studies specifically, I found at least 5 studies where it says that the research found that power leads to overconfidence in the accuracy of one's knowledge. So there's a study from 2011. There's another one, Leadership and Overconfidence, Moore and Baseman, 2022. It supports the idea that knowing you're the leader doesn't necessarily mean you're making better judgments. It can bias them. Another study, 2023, The Heuristics and Biases of Top Managers. Another one, a meta-analysis of CEO overconfidence. And then the fifth one, bias in managerial decision making. So this was only 5, and these are all in the last few years. But overall, there's a consensus that the more senior you are in a role, the more overconfident you are. And I have seen this firsthand when I work with exec clients. They'll be like, I'm already very good at negotiations. And then they will show how many mistakes I've already made. You take the first calls with our leads who eventually turn into clients. What types of mistakes have you heard from executives that you're like, even though you're so senior, you don't know such a foundational knowledge about negotiations?
Yeah, well, the one that comes to mind is one of our former clients, not necessarily when I was taking the lead call, but he shared his W-2 with the company
Yeah.
that he was interviewing with. And I think that overconfidence came from, I'm very senior in my career
Yeah.
and look
Look
how
how much.
much money I'm making. But they just showed all their cards doing that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think another thing is assuming that there are people who had to be very assertive and project a lot of strength to get to where they are, and they
And
use that
confidence.
same tone and demeanor in the negotiation. Remember, I was talking to this one C-suite exec, and she was telling me how the conversations had gone, and I remember thinking, okay, whoa, this the tone feels very intense in a way that's super adversarial. And I think it's really important to always show that you can collaborate with the other side to find a win-win. Going into every conversation with an accusatory demeanor where they're like, you're not giving me what I deserve. I think when you're a very senior exec, you feel that perhaps you're owed more because you've put in the time, you've
Yeah.
put in the blood work and sweat to get to where you are.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. That's a very good one. Also, I think what you said earlier is that as a leader, you usually want to project confidence and you're leading all hands team calls and things like that. And you want to show confidence and you're polished, you present a certain way. And then you go into negotiations with the same attitude. Look, I'm so polished, I'm so confident. But negotiations, we believe and we've seen that you actually want to come in with more of a collaborative demeanor, not like I'm a leader coming down on you, but more like collaborative, a little humble, a little innocent, a little naive, doesn't hurt. So that's one thing that actually hurts their negotiations.
How do you square the circle or circle the square of projecting naivete to your advantage when you're an exec? Would that impact their credibility?
Oh, there's some good studies on this. And I think Adam Grant, who's one of my idols, he's a Wharton professor. He was your Wharton professor.
Yeah.
And he's an organizational researcher and thought leader. He talks about how there is a fine line when people know that you're competent. When you show a little bit of naivete or vulnerability, people like you even more and respect you even more. I need to dig up exactly how he positioned
Probably
it.
linked to humility as well.
Yeah, humility, it comes across as being humble. But if your competence is up for debate, then naivete does not make you look good. This ties back to, we always say negotiate after you have the written offer, ideally. At that point, they already have confidence in your competence. And so you showing a bit of naivete there, it's potentially read more as humility, not as lack of competence. And then also the negotiations are usually happening with a recruiter. So your professional competence is not necessarily coming into question because they're not the expert in your field. Yeah. So a few other reasons, I was thinking about this and I made a list. So a few other reasons are there's fewer exec roles available to begin with. Oh, the other one is, and I'll tie them both together, there's more ego involved in keeping a title. As we were prepping for this, I was saying going from senior PM to PM, it's more common. It's more like, oh, one company calls it senior PM, one company calls it PM, whatever. But going from like VP of PM to maybe director or I don't know, senior PM, there's more ego involved there. Just naturally, it's human nature. People cling more onto that as opposed to I need to make sure that I make the most money I can make. And there's fewer exec roles available. Just the nature of a corporate is usually triangle shaped. There's only one VP of product and there's probably tens of senior PMs. Both of those things together, they're like, I'd rather just grab this VP of product or chief product officer role as opposed to trying to negotiate and try to get all the money that's available or all the value that's available on the table. However, behind that, there's a misconception on their part, which is that negotiations will jeopardize the offer and the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
People assume that negotiations jeopardize the offer and the relationship, but it doesn't have to be that way. If anything, we believe that the more you negotiate, the more you negotiating in an elegant way and a very diplomatic way, it might even give you more points in your candidacy.
Yeah.
And then the other piece that is relevant here, and they're all kind of tied together, it's that there's fewer incentives at the top to negotiate for an extra, let's say 100K. So we get our clients all the time an extra 100, an extra 200. We've gone up to getting someone from initial offer to final offer an extra 550K. Let's say our average 90, 100K. For someone who makes 200K, that's almost double. But for someone who makes a million, 2 million, recently we had a client who was making around 4 million, that 100K is not life changing for them. It's important, but it's not life changing. And so I think their whole demeanor is, I know what I'm doing. I know how to negotiate. I'm saying this in the voice of an exec, right? So I've gotten where I am because I'm so good at business skills and I know how to negotiate. I want to maintain my title and status in society and professionally. There's only few roles available. It's very competitive with all the layoffs with this market. And I don't need an extra 100K will not change my life. All of that combined leads to execs not getting as good results in negotiations as mid-careers. So yeah, what I've observed with our clients is that people who are very close to the top, they'll just say yes very quickly to things. Yeah. And that has been a little jarring. I can tell that there's more value on the table. Why are you saying yes so quickly? And I could sense their sense of insecurity. I just want to get this job. I haven't found such a high up title in a while. Their mortgages are much more expensive. Their kids' schools are much more expensive. Their cars, their homes. I think they just want to find something, go back to the way things were before.
Yeah. And I think the key thing to highlight here is that traits that make you really good in your job, even when you negotiate in your job, are not necessarily the right traits to maximize comp increases and offer negotiation. So we've done a past episode where we talked about how transparency is a very coveted and treasured skill to do well in your career. Let's say
or over communication.
Over communication, that's right, yeah. Because let's say you're a PM and you need to wrangle all the cross-functional partners to say yes on a project to move forward, all these things. As you get later in your career, those skills have served you very well to move up in your career trajectory. But when it comes to offer negotiations, if you overly communicate, then you're showing your cards and you're probably leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
The other thing too is I think execs and a lot of people that we talk to, because we work primarily with basically all super high achievers, people who do very well in their careers, they all assume, or very often they say, look, I'm already good at negotiation. I already know how to do this. And yeah, to be honest, they can probably negotiate a bit and increase their offer beyond what the initial offer was. I think most people can with just very pretty simple moves.
Yeah.
But the thing about our process is that we guide them through a back and forth with the employers where we're basically trying to get as close to the maximum budget as possible for that role without us giving away leverage, right? And for the people who do work with us, at the very least, they'll have confidence that we got the most that was available on the table, not what was just already what they probably could have gotten.
Yes, exactly. I think that the peace of mind, that conviction that you get by working with us and by following the process that we have is that, okay, at least I tried. I did not leave any value on the table. And all of this said, we will always prioritize the relationship and the offer. So within that, you also ensure you didn't leave anything on the table. And that peace of mind, like you don't have to look for a job for a while. We have clients who they had already given away a lot of leverage before working with us. They don't land in a place that they love or in a setup and compensation that they love. And now they have to continue looking for a job. And that's not a great place to be in.
Yeah, going into a job with buyer's remorse is you don't really want to start off a new role with that in the back of your head, like, oh man, could I have actually asked for more?
Yeah. And then the other piece I wanted to touch on here is that you need to think about negotiations as early as possible because you could be giving away leverage along the way. And we've seen execs, they come to us. The common misconception out there, and people don't know this in general, no matter what seniority you are, but people think that negotiations start when you get the offer. By that point, you've already given away so much leverage. You've been negotiating along the way, but without even realizing. And the other piece is that even if you're an excellent business deals negotiator or whatever you do in your job offer negotiations is different because there's also some legislations to keep in mind. For example, a lot of people don't know that it's illegal in many US states for an employer to ask you about your salary history, whether how much you're making now or how much you made in the past. And that's why you may have seen that recruiters and companies are very aggressive in asking you what your preferred number is or if their budget works for you, because that's their roundabout way of figuring out how much you made in the past, or basically trying to anchor you to a number. A lot of our clients didn't know that it's illegal. Why is it illegal? Because you have to think through all the steps. It's illegal because your next job offer should be based on what you offer to that role and what the role needs, not based on what you made before. But our clients might not realize that. And so they're like, I'm happy to share what I'm making now. I make so much. I'm a top performer. But now that's your ceiling in a way.
Are there any specific things about exec negotiations that differ from general offer negotiations or that's unique for C-suite or very senior roles?
I'm trying to think about the specific negotiations, but working with us, it is very different because execs are a lot more demanding. They want a response right away, and they have their own polished language and things like that. I mean,
I think if anything, there may be more clauses or special considerations in exec negotiations.
there could be some. Yeah, there
But
could be.
but the tactics and strategies
The
are
tactics
are
are
the
the
same.
same. Yeah. A lot of our tactics apply across different negotiations. I mean, we help with B2B deals as well, and we apply different tactics. In terms of clauses, I can't think of anything. I mean, maybe when you're applying to startups, the outcome of the startup and what happens when it's acquired or goes public and things like that. But that's true for anyone who gets equity as opposed to not get equity. So thinking about our clients who are mid-career to execs, between mid-career and execs, there's not that much of a difference. Between early career and execs, of course, there's a huge difference.
Yeah. I wonder if, because I'm remembering some of our past exec clients, there may be more room to come up with creative solutions on how the comp package lands. So let's say if you're just applying for a PM role at a big tech company, all of those comp packages look pretty similar. There may not be that much deviation, although we have gotten very unique things added. So, work with us and you'll see lots of edge cases. But I think with exec negotiations, there could be ways to think about if there are bonuses or equity tied to specific KPIs. Well, maybe you have a wider range of KPIs to tie performance-based compensation to overall company revenue goals, like meeting certain really big initiatives for the company, things like that, right?
Yeah, I could go in so many directions, but do not tie your comp to KPIs.
Yeah, that's
so
very important.
yeah, we can talk about this if you guys ever schedule a free consultation call with us. Alex takes almost all of them, and then maybe you can talk about the KPI aspect.
Yeah.
We are at time, so let's wrap it up here. Hopefully this was not to trash talk executives. We've had some amazing clients who are executives, but it's just that this is why it's hard to get a better outcome. It's because, like we said, ego, fewer roles available. As an executive, you're less incentivized to try to push for that extra 100K because it's a much smaller fraction of your total comp than for someone else who is a mid-career or lower. And then the overconfidence. So that was the quick summary.
All right, cool. Well, see you all at the next episode of Gentle Power.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.